Hi, this is your application specialist, Dean Eldridge at FREY Municipal Software. Today, I will be demonstrating the new features, improvements, and refinements of the 2023 release of CHIPS. This will be a great opportunity to explore and learn how to get more value from your CHIPS Payroll System. Please refer to the CHIPS release letter for information concerning these enhancements. If you are following along with the release letter, please mark any items that you have further questions about and contact support at 1-800-659-3739 or email us at support@freymunicipalsoftware.com. Let's begin by logging into CHIPS and reviewing the exciting new enhancements to the CHIPS 2023 release. When logging into CHIPS after the update has been installed, each user will be prompted to read the current release letter. This will contain information about all enhancements, including the ones we'll be discussing today. You can click Yes to view the release letter now, or No, and the next time you log into CHIPS, it will prompt you to release it, or you can check the Don't Show This message again, and this message for the release letter notification won't come up next time. Also, the first time you log in, you'll be prompted for filling out a Stay Connected. Once this is filled out, this message won't come up again either. Please fill this out as it notifies us that the update has been installed. The release letter will also always be available through the Help Release Letter menu option. By clicking on this, at any time you'll be able to access the release letter and review the enhancements with the current version of CHIPS. Now let's begin going through the enhancements to the CHIPS 23 release. First, we'll discuss several enhancements in the Employee Maintenance menu. So let's go to Employee Maintenance. The first item that we'll discuss is a new tab that's accessible on the employee screen called the Check Status tab. From this Check Status tab, we'll be able to see all checks and direct deposits with the current status, outstanding, cleared, or voided, as processed through the check reconciliation module. This will be an easy way to look and see if any employee checks haven't been cleared yet. The next topic we'll talk about is related to the notes screen. On the notes screen, there's now a button available at the bottom of the screen for a notes report. Whatever selections have been made on this screen will carry forward when I select the notes report option. For example, if I type in a date range of 3/1/2022 through the current date and hit refresh, this screen will only show those notes. Now when I click on this new notes report option, any ranges that have been entered in, such as a date range, would be carried forward on this notes report screen. So this will allow us an easy way to print the notes directly from the employee screen without having to either use the print screen button or closing out of the employee notes and going to the notes report separately. The next thing we'll talk about will be related to the off time screen. This would be similar to what we talked about with the notes screen, with the new option on this screen being an option to access the off time report directly from the off time screen. So this will work the same way as it did on the note screen, meaning if we enter in a specific date range on this screen, so like if I entered 06/01 through the end of 2023, hit refresh, it only shows me off-time records for that date range. When I click on this new off-time button, it will carry forward any ranges that I entered, so I can then print the off-time report directly from the off-time screen now. So just an easy way to print that information without either having to do a print screen or close out of this to print the off time report outside of this area. The next item we'll talk about are some enhancements with the Access Web Services button within employee maintenance. So from the General tab for users with the Web Services module, the Web Services button, now when it's pressed, it will provide a drop-down menu of 3 options. Previously, this option was to access the web services for this employee. So in addition, now 2 extra options are available: to require password reset, as well as to remove registered account. So where this would come into play is if an employee is unable to register their account, they've lost the information and they're no longer able to access, nor are they able to register an account. Directly from the employee screen, we could click on Remove Registered Account, enter yes, then click OK. And for this employee, so in this example, employee number 4, Monica Baines, once I select this option, type in yes into this message box, when I click OK, their registered account would now be removed. So now they can register their account from the beginning again. Previously, this would have been accessed through the main menu, but now you can access it directly from the employee maintenance screen. One additional option or enhancement within employee maintenance is related to the change history. So when you highlight one of the employee change history items, double click or click on View Employee Change, this screen has now been made larger. It includes 3 additional grid lines in both the before and after change grids. So there's additional lines available to view in here. So it includes more information. Next, we'll discuss some new options with the notes. Earlier, we were on the notes screen talking about the notes report. Now we'll talk about a new option that has been added to the notes screen to pin a note to the top of the note screen. When this option is selected, the note will remain at the top of the screen. The most current pinned note will always be on top. So when I select a note here, and I'll cancel out of here and go into Edit with the employee. When I go to the note screen, and I'll select to edit a note. So let's say this one down here, I want to pin it to the top. So I would edit this note. You'll see on every note there's now a checkbox that says pin to top. When this is selected and we click OK, that note will always now show at the top of the note list. And over in the notes area, there'll be an image of a pin indicating this note was pinned to the top. If an additional note is pinned as well, the most recent note that was pinned would be on top. So if I now pin this one on top, it will be the first pinned note, and now this will be the second. This would be beneficial to keep the most important notes, regardless of the date, pinned to the top of the screen. The next item we'll talk about will be related to user-defined pay types. So we'll close out of employees, and we're going to go to the user-defined pay types, which is in the general user-defined pay types menu option. There's a new option to create a user-defined pay type for a flat dollar amount. When adding, there are now options to select no default rate, regular pay factor, as well as default pay rate. So when we're setting up a pay type, So we'll set up an example here. You can come down if there's no pay rate associated with it. You're just going to enter something in when adding the employee, then that's no default rate. If it's using a pay factor, which you can currently do, then you would select this, enter the factor. The new option is this default pay rate. So when we select this and enter in a pay rate, so if I entered in something like $5 there, and I click OK, anytime I enter that pay rate for an employee, that pay rate would already be entered in as well. So now we'll go over to employee maintenance just to see how that would be used. So I'll close out of the user-defined pay types. I'll go to an employee. Let's select employee number 2. I'll edit that employee, and then I'll go over to the payroll tab, and then down in the user-defined pay types area, if I were to select that pay type that I just created, I'll click OK, and once I select, it will default to the $5 pay rate as I set up on the user-defined pay type. So that will allow you to set up a predefined pay rate that can already have the dollar amount assigned. So when you add it to an employee, it will already have that dollar amount assigned to the employee. I already have one set up called flat pay rate of $1 that I have associated with a number of employees. So in addition to the pay rate defaults, an option has also been added to synchronize the amounts on the employee screen with the default. So for example, I already had this dollar one, so flat pay for $1, and I have that associated with a number of employees already. So if I went into that pay rate screen, so let's go back to the user-defined pay types, and I'll go to that other one that I had set up called flat pay. I'll edit that, and let's say that that amount is going to be increased to $2. So from here, I've changed the default. So now when I add this pay rate to new employees, it will be for $2 instead of $1. When I click OK here, it's going to provide a message or display a message that basically tells me that I've made a change to the defaults, but it only changes the default. So that's only changing it on here. And it's telling me if I want to change this on all the employees that already have this pay rate assigned to them, then I would use what's called a synchronize function. So I'll click OK there, just acknowledging that I read the message. And then if I want that $2 pay rate to also be changed for the flat pay, user-defined pay type for all employees assigned to it, then I would go into employees and into global changes, and we'll talk about the next new option, which is the synchronize pay rate defaults. So this is how I would change anyone that has the flat pay type assigned for $1 to recognize the new default of $2. So from this screen, there's lots of different ranges that I can select. So I could set employee range, statuses, class. Down at the bottom, it's going to list all of the different pay types that are available, that are applicable to synchronizing. For example, the one that I just set up, the flat pay, I can select it from here. When I hit process, it's going to update each employee to recognize that new pay rate. I'll preview it first just so we can see them. So all of these employees, I have the flat pay rate assigned to their employee screen. It's going to show that it was $1 and now it's going to be $2. So this is just a way that I can quickly change all of the employees if I want to recognize the new default pay rate. Once I hit process here, on each of those employees, the pay rate will now be changed. It will also print out a log of the changes. Additionally, on that screen, there's also options to change the overtime rates and the special rates. Generally, the overtime rate 1.5. If for some reason one of those changed and we want to synchronize all the employees, we could utilize those two on here as well. Whereas the rest of these are user-defined pay types. Let's close out of the synchronized pay rate defaults. And the next item we'll talk about will be related to some changes with the web services. There have been a couple of changes to the web services module. The first option is available is an option to set the default tab for the employee dashboard on the web services. So like when the employees log in and they see the history tab, followed by a pay stubs tab and a tax document tab. And then the last one is the employee information tab. There's an option where you as an entity can go into the system controls. So I went to General, System Controls, and Edit. And on the Preferences tab, down at the bottom corner of the screen, there is a Web Services Preferences button. When I click on that, there'll be on the top portion of the screen an option that says Employee Dashboard Start tab. By default, that's set to history. Now you have the ability to change what you want the default to be. So for example, if I wanted it to start on the Employee Information tab, once I hit back and then click OK, the next time the web services database is generated. So these changes don't take effect until the next time the web services database is generated and transferred up to the internet. But the next time that occurs, when an employee then logs into the web services, the default tab that will come up first will be, in this example, the Employee Information tab. So if you'd rather the employees see the Pay Stubs tab first, then you could select that in here. And then for your entity, that's what the employee would see as the default when they log into the web services. An additional enhancement also on this screen and related to web services is a new option to exclude non-active employees from the web services database. And this has an option to indicate the amount of activity or how many years to go back with no activity. So if I select this box and maybe put in 2 years, what that would do is the next time I generate the web services database and transfer it, any employee that is not active, so they're retired, terminated, inactive, so on, they're not active, and they haven't had any activity for the past 2 years, then they won't be included on the web services anymore. The number of payroll years testing must be 2 or higher, meaning I can't put 1 in here. It needs to be 2 or higher. But that would be useful, for example, if you've been using this for 10 years. And if you had employees that retired 7, 8 years ago, there's no reason necessarily for them to access this anymore. So this is a way more at the system level that you can say if they're not active X number of years, don't include their activity on the web services anymore. So with either of these enhancements, the Employee Dashboard Start tab or the excluding of non-active employees, once we've gone into the system controls, made those selections, we'll hit back, and then on this screen, we'll click OK. This is what saves or updates those changes in CHIPS. you receive any messages about Crystal or anything, we can just hit no there. Now, the next time that you generate the database for the internet, those changes would then be reflected. The next enhancement we'll talk about is related to direct deposits. And this is going to be related to something new that we added a couple of years ago, and just kind of an enhancement on top of that one. So just to kind of give a little background, I'm going to go into an employee. When an employee is set up for direct deposit, specifically if they have multiple accounts, there's an option that was added a couple of years ago to set up what's called a primary direct deposit account. And that's used by checking this primary box. When this primary account option is set up, then what that currently does, so this is not the new part, but what that currently does is when you add a time payroll transaction for an employee, so if I add a transaction for that same employee, there's a box down at the bottom, checkbox, that says send payment amount to primary direct deposit account. And that was added a couple years ago, which basically means if I check that during this time payroll, so on this time transaction, that would cause their entire pay to go to just their primary account and not any of the others. So it only is impacted if I check this box during time payroll. Now, what the new option is related to when we print the direct deposit transaction. So when we're updating the direct deposits in CHIPS. And on this screen, the print direct deposits screen, there's a new option that says send payment amount to primary direct deposit account. If I check this at this point, then this takes effect for every employee transaction that I'm getting ready to update. So initially there was the screen on the individual time transaction screen. This is basically saying for this entire payroll that I'm doing right now, I want to send everybody's payroll that has a primary direct deposit account. If they don't have a primary set up, then it doesn't matter anyways. But if they do have a primary set up on their employee screen, then everyone would have their pay go to that one primary account. So instead of having to check that box individually on each time transaction, this is more of a global option for this entire payroll. If an employee doesn't have a direct deposit account marked as the primary account, the employee's net pay would be distributed to their assigned direct deposit accounts normally. So it would work the same if there's not a primary set up. The next option or new feature that we'll talk about is related to enabling and disabling pay types. So we're going to go back into the system controls. So general system controls and edit. And what we'll talk about here is a new option that is included on the Preferences tab called Available Payroll Types in the System. So that's this section right here. Now you'll see right below it, there's Available Payroll Types in Payroll. This already existed. These checkboxes would be used to enable or disable pay types from being available in time payroll. So this second part here already exists in CHIPS. So like if you don't use personal time, if you uncheck that, then during time payroll entry, the personal hours field would be grayed out, disabled. So that was already there. This part that's above it is kind of a higher level one. This is available payroll types in the system. When these new checkboxes, so up here at the top part, when these new checkboxes, which include overtime, special, holiday, sick, vacation, comp, and personal, when they are unchecked, the pay type is either disabled or removed from the screens, and any applicable menu items will also be disabled. For example, if we uncheck special, when I uncheck special, it's also going to disable it from being accessed during time payroll. So the menu, the area below it will also be unchecked. If I then go into anywhere that the special type is available. So if I go into employee maintenance and go to the payroll tab, you'll see the special is now disabled. Also, if I add a time transaction for the employee, so if I add a time transaction for that employee, you'll see, or any employee, you'll see the special is disabled or grayed out from there as well. So that would be useful if you wanted to stop or if there were unwanted hours types from getting accidentally used anywhere in the system. So if you don't use vacation time at all in the system, or you don't use comp time, that main or that top group of checkboxes that we saw in the system control, that is where we disable them. Just have to keep in mind, if we do disable them, they are disabled everywhere. Whereas if it's something you just don't want to use during time payroll, then that's what the second section of checkboxes that already existed, that's where they would come into play. We'll close out of here, and the next thing that we'll talk about is related to the security settings. So I'm going to go into File, Utilities, and down to Security. And this new security option is where I can select a user. I'm going to edit this user. And on the security settings for this user, there's a new checkbox that says require password change at next login. So if I check this box, so I'll just save that change. And I'm going to minimize CHIPS and log in with that user. The next time I log in, it's going to force this user to change their password. So that's just a way, if you wanted to require the user to change their password, or maybe you're setting up a new user login name for the system, and you give them like maybe 12345 as their password, but you don't want that to be what they use every time. You could set up, in essence, a temporary password, add the security, put in that password, check that box, and then the next time they log in with their, we'll call it the temporary password of 12345, it would prompt them or force them to change their password the next time they log into CHIPS. The next item we'll talk about is related to the check reconciliation report. So if we go to reports, to the payroll, down to check reconciliation and down to the check report, there is a new option on this report print selection to print the employee's residential address line on the report. When this option is selected, the employee's residential address will be printed below the check line on the report. So these two additional lines are what's included based on us selecting that option. There's also a preference for the employee residential address line that can be selected within the check report or the check report preferences as well. Next, there's an option on the history report. So if we go reports, history report, there's a new page break between employees option on this report selection screen. When this box is checked, a page break will occur after each employee. This doesn't apply to the Excel option. It's for the printed or previewed or send to PDF option. But by selecting that, there'll be a page break between each employee when the history report is printed. A new payroll report has been created called the Payroll Summary Report. It can be accessed via the Reports Payroll Summary Report option or from the Reports task pane up in the top right-hand corner. This new Payroll Summary Report shows the employee's gross and withholding amounts, deduction earning amounts, and pay types for either a pay period or a check date range, selected at the top of the screen. The report can also be printed for each employee, or it can be grand totals only. A number of filters can be used to select employee ranges as well as classes for which employees to include, along with departmental ranges. Preferences can be set up for this report as well within the preference menu option, and with users with the data dictionary module, this can also be sent to Excel. Once we've entered in the ranges that we want to see, so like if we just want to see a particular date range, an entire year, entire quarter, once we've keyed in those ranges that we want to see and made our other selections, this report is going to show if we selected to include the detail, meaning all employees, not just the grand totals, then it's going to give a report showing each employee, gross wages, federal tax gross, their federal taxes withheld. So similar to what the year-end report would show, but with date ranges, so you can select for any date range that you would like to see the report for. The next option we'll talk about is on the deduction report. The deduction report now has a page break between deduction codes option. When this box is checked, the page break will occur after each deduction. This doesn't apply when it's sent to Excel, but it is also available when designating the report to print under the report scheduler. So if we had multiple deduction codes and we wanted a page break between each one, we could check that box. It would print one deduction code, page break, followed with the next deduction code. Next, the export options. So when we go to File and Export, the export screens have been enlarged to show more information. So when I click Employees, these screens have been enlarged, so you'll see more information on those screens. Next, the Fund Control Search has been changed to have the Bucks 23 search features. The fund comment was added to the code and description search grids, and a new comment search sequence was also added. So if we go somewhere where we have an option to search for fund, for example, in the employees on the distribution screen, if you use the employee funds option here and click add. So anywhere there's a fund search in CHIPS, when we click on search, this search now includes the comment and also the description, the comment and the descriptions, and also there's additional sequencing options. So anywhere that the fund is used in CHIPS, those search options now show more information, including what was added to Bucks 23. Similar to the fund control search, the GL code search. So anywhere that we would search on a general ledger code, which this would be a lot more places than the fund control. This would be on the employees, departments, deduction earning codes. But anywhere there is a GL account search, this has been changed to have the Bucks 23 GL code search features as well. The comment sort sequence was added, and the account balances checkboxes were added, and the balance, last post date, uncommitted, and uncollected options were all added to the grid. So that's anywhere in CHIPS that you would search for a general ledger account. And the final enhancement is with the vendor searches. So anywhere that you would search for a vendor, which could also be which would be within employee maintenance, deduction codes, tax codes, tables, primarily related to if you use the withholding invoices. But anywhere there is a vendor search, the vendor search was also changed to have the Bucks 23 vendor search features. This includes the CC vendor options at the bottom. So the vendor search options now look like they do in Bucks as well. This will conclude the CHIPS 2023 release overview. We at FREY Municipal Software would like to thank you and thank each one for responding to our CHIPS survey, as well as those who participated in our beta testing. These ideas and suggestions that are submitted by our customers are the driving force for the changes made to the software. I hope this video was helpful, and please let any of us in support know of any questions. Thank you.